It's really good to have you in the backyard again. I'm Mike and you're here at Delmarva Backyard, and I suppose that you're here for a steak video because today I'm gonna show you the tips and tricks I have for cooking the absolute perfect steak. There's a lot of variables when it comes to, making the perfect steak. I think it starts with the grade beef that you're buying. What kind of beef are you buying? Are you buying prime? Are you buying choice? Are you buying select? Are you, what is it you're buying? And are you buying a steak with some marbling? Are you buying a steak that doesn't have any of those real hard fat layers? Does the steak generally look healthy, good, or is it brown? Does it look old? Is it like dark brown, like it's been in the refrigerator for 2 weeks? But it truly starts right there with the grade steak that you're purchasing. Personally, I prefer prime grade beef. However, it's expensive. I'm not gonna have prime grade beef steaks every time we have steaks. I eat steak way too often for that. So today we have a set of choice steaks, and the reason we're going with choice steaks is because that's probably the most common. That's probably what most everyone out there uses on a regular basis. So outside of grade and marbling, the next thing we want to pay attention to when it comes to steaks is the thickness. If you get a real skinny little steak, you're not gonna have a great steak. You just don't have enough steak to make it a great steak. You want to get a nice heavy sear on it, but by the time you get a nice heavy sear on a thin steak, you've already gone way past medium well, and you're into that well done territory where you can just give it to the dog. So for me, I'm looking for a minimum of about 2 knuckles. About 2 knuckles, and I like a steak that's about 1.5 inches, 2 inches thick or so. My steak of choice is a filet. Now, you could go any direction you want on this. The reason I like the filet is it's very, very tender, and it's more healthy for you. It's a leaner cut. So I'm gonna use fillets. I would suggest you use whatever you want. I will tell you, the more fat it has, like if you're cooking a ribeye, the more it can tend to have some variability in the cooking. Parts of the steak can be different temperatures than the other because parts of the steak have different fat content than the other parts. So you got to be careful with that. Next big thing to consider when making the perfect steak is, what are you going to cook it on? If you go to a restaurant, a lot of times they're using a broiler or a cast iron pan. Some of them have, in-house grills and things that they use. But when you're at home in the backyard, and personally, I think the best flavor for steak comes from wood. So you could use charcoal, lump charcoal, wood chunks, logs if you want to. You could use anything you want. But I think the best flavor for steak comes when it's cooked over top of wood. So we're going wood cooking, but what are we going to use for wood cooking? Any charcoal grill, any wood burning charcoal grill. Now what I'm gonna say is, like, if you're using something big like my Lone Star 48 inch, you're gonna waste a lot of wood or whatever you're using to provide heat. So the smaller, when it comes to something like this where you're just putting it on there for a few minutes and pulling it off, the smaller the better, so you're not wasting wood. However, when you go smaller, you need to make sure that you're getting an even cooking surface. Where you're putting those steaks, you want even temperatures. So that comes from making sure your coal bed is evenly spaced up to the grill grate. And so that's what prompted me to look into purchasing the newest addition to the backyard, the PK 360. Supposedly a absolute steak machine. I think the PK 360 is the most common grill used for steak competitions. And that's because of the design. It's very simple, but it's very reliable and gives you even cooking. This PK grill is built for steaks. You have air intakes here. You turn it 90 degrees, open, turn it back, closed. Same thing on this one. Turn it 90 degrees, the vent's open, turn it back, and they're closed. What makes this guy so versatile is it also has 2 air outlets. And so now you can draw air in one side and let it go out the other side, creating that smoker type flow. And you can do 2-zone cooking as well as direct fire on this thing. This thing's built of some lightweight, tough aluminum, so this grill could be portable if you really wanted it to. And then it's built of the toughest stainless steel there is for these racks. You have 1 rack on the bottom and 1 on top. This one opens up on the side so you can put more fuel in there. This one holds your charcoal or wood or whatever you're using. And then down here, some of the really clever stuff they have with this guy, and this is an ash hole so that you can pull the plug and get the ashes out nice and easily. These guys right here, they cover up the intakes. So you can see that they're closed right now. When I turn the intake valve 90 degrees, now it's wide open. Open, closed. Open, closed. But they've really thought this thing out so well. They have all the details covered. And these guys here cover up those holes so you don't plug them up with ash. One of the things that makes this a steak machine is the fact that the distance from the charcoal grate or the wood grate up to the cooking grate is even. There's no bows in it. They're pretty much parallel to each other. So if you get a nice even coal bed, you'll have the same distance from the top of the coals to the top grate, if that's what you're looking for, pretty easily. Now with steaks, it's important to have even cooking because even cooking allows you to get to that perfect temperature, whatever that temperature is for you, a lot easier. Not sure whether my neighbors hate me or love me, but they always smell smoke coming from the backyard. I'm using some charcoal, but I'm also going to use some post oak wood chunks. I'm going to shove those down in there. You want to get your charcoal screaming hot before we start cooking. We're going to go 2-zone cooking, and what that means is on this side we're not going to have any fuel, any wood, any direct flame, and so we'll just kind of let the steaks sit over here, kind of come up to temperature, and then when they get to about 105 to 110 degrees Fahrenheit, we're gonna go ahead and put them on the hot side, and we'll get some grill marks and get that nice crust on the outside. Let's see what this thing's made of. Let's go ahead and get our vents lined up the way we want them. And what we wanna do is we wanna draw air in under the fire, turn that 90 degrees, and then we wanna draw it through and out the opposite side so that we have that heat flow through the PK360. We want this fire screaming hot, so we're gonna leave the intake wide open and the outlet wide open. You can cook the perfect steak on whatever grill you have. I've cooked a lot of steaks on a lot of different pits and grills, and as long as you have the same concept down where you're trying to bring the whole steak up to temperature slowly, that way you get it to where you want it. You know, that meat, for me, it's medium, so I like that 105, 110, and it's a lot easier for me then to transfer the steak over to the hot side of whatever grill. You can do it on a gas grill, but you're still gonna do it the same way. And then finish the steak on the hot side up to the temperature you prefer. For me, I'm going up to about 125 total. I don't want that raw inside, but you know, I want it to be really pink all the way through for the most part. I just want that char on the outside. For me, that's a perfectly done steak. Now, a lot of that has to do with how thick the steak is. The thinner the steak, the less time you're gonna wanna put it on the cold side. And so if your steak's only a knuckle or so, you really don't need the cold side at all. You're gonna go straight hot for about 2 minutes on each side. I'm guessing this is gonna take somewhere around 10 total minutes. We're gonna do 6 to 8 minutes or so on the cold side, and then we're gonna go over to the hot side and do about 2 minutes or so on each side, turning it halfway through each one of those 2 minutes to get those perfectly looking grill marks. A little tip that maybe you don't hear that often, it's kind of taken for granted, is don't rush it. Wait till your pit is up to the temperature. You're looking for 550 or so. When we get to 550, then we'll go ahead and put these steaks on. Another tip for when you're using real wood, or even charcoal for that matter, is you want to wait till your smoke kind of clears up. It cleans up and it's not as dirty. Otherwise, you're going to get a bitter smoke flavor on your steak, and that's not really what you want. You just want those smoky accents. Be able to tell real clear when it's cleaned up because it'll be a lot thinner and it'll be more of a bluish hue to it rather than this dense whiteness. Time to go ahead and put these guys on the cold side. I'm calling it cold side just because there's no direct heat. But what we're doing is reverse searing. And again, we're doing that because these steaks are so thick. We want to cook that middle perfectly. We don't want it to be, you know, that bright pink raw in the middle. All right, guys, we're about 7 or 8 minutes in. And 94, we're close. Before we transfer these guys over to the hot side, we're gonna brush them down with a little unsalted butter. Okay. Now we're gonna take these guys and place them firmly on the hot side. On an angle, little pat. There we go, lid down. All right, let's turn 45 degrees. Little pat. And lid down. All right, so about 8 minutes indirect, and now about 2.5 minutes direct. We're gonna flip. Little butter. Perfect. Another huge step whenever you're cooking any meat, you need to let it rest when you pull it off the grill. Guys, it doesn't get much better looking than that. It smells amazing. Looks amazing. I imagine it's gonna taste amazing. My favorite part of this channel is trying all the foods. I let it rest for about 10 minutes. You could go a little longer. It's not as important with steaks. You don't want them to get cool or cold. You want to eat them while they're hot, but you do want to let those juices redistribute into the meat, because when the meat is cooking at high temperatures, those juices kind of rush to the center to get away from the heat, and then as you take it off the heat, they just kind of fall back into the meat. If you were to cut it open right after taking it off the grill, those juices are gonna have a direct highway out of the meat forever, and then you're not gonna have a juicy piece of steak. That's a juicy piece of steak. I mean, it's just dripping. Amazing. Now let's see if it tastes as good as it looks and smells. I think chimichurri originally came from Argentina, and there's some different ways and different methods and different ingredients you can use, but you can definitely change it up to make it your own. Like with any great piece of meat you cook out in the backyard, that's not just dinner or food, that's an experience. You know what I'm saying? It's an experience in itself, just every bite. And it's kind of why chefs, they love what they do so much, is because they put this crazy amount of attention into all these little small subtle details that really the end consumer, the person that's going to eat it, really never is going to appreciate, at least not in the way that it probably deserves. It's just a good meal. For the chef, man, it's a work of art. It's an experience for the person that's going to eat it. And when you add flavors and bold flavors like this, it separates your cook from anyone else's cook. And, it takes your food to a whole nother level. But two, it does provide great meals. I mean, great eating. I will warn you, The better you get at cooking anything, whether it's barbecue, whether it's steaks, whether whatever, even an in the kitchen type of meal, the better you get at it and the more attention you put into the detail, the more disappointed you're gonna be when you go out and eat. And that's just part of the gig. I mean, you get better and better at something, and you start to really have an appreciation for that something, and you look for that something, and you can tell when other people don't have that appreciation for it. Guys, I really appreciate you sticking around for the whole video. It means a lot. Your support really means a lot. I do this because of you. Leave your questions down in the comments below. Do me a wonderful favor. Please share the video on your social media walls, in a text message to somebody. Anyone that likes steak, this one's for you. Share it with them. Guys, I hope you go out, you grab some steaks, you get some ingredients for the chimichurri, you put this thing together, and you realize exactly how amazing this is. It's not hard at all. You guys have an awesome week. I'll see you on the next video.